What's going on, friends? Welcome back to the Maine Gainz podcast. I am your host, Jenny LaFerrier, and with me today, I have special guest Parker Bowden. Parker, thanks for joining us today.
Absolutely. I'm happy to be here.
So, for those of you who don't know, Parker competes in track and field and specifically the hurdles event. What distance do you do?
The 110
Okay.
meters.
So it's very impressive, the stuff that he does. And today he's just going to talk about his journey to how he got into track and field, it's hurdles specifically. It's a pretty niche event. And excited and interested to hear what he has to say. So, Parker, why don't you just introduce yourself to the people?
Yeah, my name is Parker Bowden. I'm 26 now. I'm a 110 meter, I would say, professional amateur hurdler. Um, I've been doing track and field since I was probably competitively, probably since about first grade or so. When my dad first threw me into a meet, and then I've been doing sports. I mean, ever since I could walk, and um, I live in Spokane, Washington. I went to school, high school out here. Then I went to community college for 2 years. Then I went to a Division I university out here, about 30 minutes from Spokane in Cheney, Eastern Washington University. And then I finished up there after COVID and whatnot, and I'm in my second year of competing post collegiately right now.
When was the moment that you kind of realized hurdles was your event and you wanted to go all in on that and try to take it further?
I don't think it was until I was a little bit older. I mean, when I was younger, I was really good at it, so that was like but I liked the field events more. They were a little more laid back. You didn't get like the pre-race anxiety. I didn't, so um probably not till I got to junior college. That was when, I realized I could be pretty decent at them. And yeah, because in high school I was doing well my freshman and sophomore year, and then I got hurt junior and senior year. So the 110s were, I went from being like one of the best to not really being able to compete. So that was kind of frustrating and whatnot. But once I got to junior college, I think that was when I was like, oh, I'm making pretty big progress in this right now. So this could take off. So
What was your injury?
in high school, I tore my quad, uh, hamstring. I had an issue with my knee that was like iliotibial band syndrome, like IT band syndrome. Uh, but it would like rub on the bone, so there was a lot of stuff. It was all overuse things from being a three sport athlete and not taking any breaks, not letting myself recover. So
What other sports did you play?
in high school, football and basketball on top of track, yeah.
Did you like either of those more, or did you it was like you did those for fun?
Basketball is definitely more for fun. I liked football quite a bit though. Football was probably my favorite sport.
What position in football did you play?
I was a wide receiver and then I was a cornerback.
Nice.
Yeah.
So you tore your quad, you say junior year of high school.
Yeah, that would have been junior year.
What like season were you in? Football season? Were you in indoor or outdoor?
Outdoor track. Yeah, it was I think it was like 3 weeks before our conference, like our league championship meet.
Oof.
Yeah. So it was rough.
So I take it you did not compete in conferences, or did you try to power through?
I did, and then it just made it worse. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
So
Making it worse, did that like force you to take a break? I guess going into that summer before your senior year. Did you take a break? How did you handle that injury?
yeah, if I think back, I mean, I had uh good like medical help, which was good. But I probably took as much time as I needed. But then it was, I mean, once I felt okay enough, it was back into football camp and basketball camp, all the summer stuff.
Mhm.
So I probably didn't take as much time as I would now, but I also need more time now, being a little bit older. Things don't heal as quick. I'm not as, I'm a little more fragile.
I can definitely relate. I'm turning 27 this year, so it's like and I know that's not, like, old, but I can feel the difference between 23-year-old Jenny and 26, 27-year-old Jenny.
Absolutely. That's what the joke is. Even at work, talking to people, I'm like, I'm getting older, so I got it. And they're like, you're not old. And I'm like, well, in the sport, I'm old. Like I'm an old person for the sport, and so therefore, it's like, yeah, I can't do the same things I used to be able to. I can't get away with the same things I used to be able to. So,
What made you go to junior college before going, like, D1?
um, mainly the injuries. I lost a lot of interest from schools because I was injured, which is, fair. I was it's hard to if someone who's chronically injured, you don't know if they're going to pan out in college and stuff. And so, um, I was ready to be done. I was ready just to go to school and kind of, move on and do that sort of thing. Uh, and then I didn't have anyone like force me into doing it or like guilt me into doing it. I had some people, in my life who were like, I want you to not have to look back and be like, man, I wonder what would have happened if I would have done it and whatnot. And so went to visit at the JUCO. It seemed right, seemed like a good fit. Um, and yeah, it was like that was probably one of the best decisions I have ever made. Um, but it was um, I could have went to other schools that were even in our conference. There just wasn't any scholarship money, um, and I think JUCO lets you kind of like really develop in those 2 years. Instead of going to a Division 1 where I'm not gonna, you're gonna be, it's gonna like you're gonna keep losing, get knocked down for the most part, especially at the times I was running. So I don't think I would have had the same experience. I think JUCO let me kind of, get some wins under my belt, get the swing of it back, and then, so yeah, I think that's really it for choosing that.
Did you have, like, really good coaching at the JUCO, or was it just, like I mean, you had good coaches, but it was the repetition and just the constant work that, like, got you better, or was there just a lot of things that you learned in that time that helped, like, catapult you forward to faster times?
A little bit of both for sure. Yeah. I was fortunate enough. My hurdle coach my freshman year was Linda Lanker. She worked with like Team USA. I've known her since I was a kid. Uh, and so I had that. I also had a strength coach, Ryan Weidman, that he developed me into, an athlete, like put muscle on me. We built powerful muscle. Um, and yeah, I mean, he took me from probably a buck 60 to, 185, and we got the work in. But I think it's a little bit of both, having those coaches to push you and the people to give you the right cues and the things to do. But then also it's just showing up every day and doing it, and that's where it's like from my freshman year to even when I got to Eastern, but from my freshman year to like when I finished at Eastern, it's like I was light years ahead of, it's like you're just so different, and it's easy to like lose sight of that, I think. And I saw a video like I think it was this year, I was just going through old videos and I was like, man, that used to like I remember it was a start that I was so proud of when I was in junior college. I was like, look, I'm getting it. Like this is such a good start. And I watched it like, like a month ago. And I'm sitting here like, this is horrible compared to like where I'm at now, which is it's cool to see. Uh, so I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's the showing up every single day and just putting in the work, but then also having a good coach, I think will oftentimes make or break a runner. And really in any sport you do.
Did you end up doing 4 years at Eastern, or, did you just, like I don't know really know how JUCO plus like D1 works? Like, did you do 2 years at JUCO and then four? Like, how'd that work?
I did 2 years at JUCO, and then I was I was gonna have three at Eastern, uh, because I came in, ran pretty well my real junior year, I guess. Uh, and then the next year, we redshirted my outdoor season. I just had some injuries and I had some life stuff and just things I just needed to like step back. Uh, and then that would have gave me a full year the following year. So then, um, my real fifth year, I ran indoor, was running really well, and then COVID happened right after indoor.
Mhm.
So we didn't have an outdoor season, like didn't know if we were going to come back, but we knew we had eligibility. So I was ready to go D2 if I had to, because I knew that I like my PR before then, because I hadn't run outdoor, was 14:23. And I was like, dude, I know I can break 14 seconds, like, and so I was like, I'll go D2, I'll go and I'll go wherever just to run one more year, which luckily I was able to come back to Eastern. So I did full 6 years at Eastern. So yeah,
That's a long time at school.
it was a lot of school. It was a lot of school.
Speaking of school, what was your major?
My undergrad was in marketing, and then I got my MBA in general business and finance. And then because of COVID, I had to take, obviously, I had to take more classes. I finished that MBA the year that COVID happened through the summer. I finished it. Didn't know if, obviously, like, I didn't know if we were going to come back and run or not. Uh, and so I got another concentration in the MBA in like health services admin. So it was a lot of class.
With all of like COVID and getting your MBA, was the plan to kind of be done with track once school was over and just kind of get in the real world, for lack of better words, and get like a job? Or as you were nearing the end of your college career, was it something in your head being like, I wonder if I could take this even further?
I think during COVID and um, yeah, I think during all of that, the plan was probably to be done once school is over. Granted, I hadn't ran uh, that last season. Uh, Once I came back for that my sixth year, so my last year of school, uh, everything, I had a ton of injuries that year. I mean, the normal amount stuff, but I also had some freak stuff. But I was running really well once we got to outdoor. Um, I don't think it was until conference that was when I was running 13.9s, 13.8s, 13.7s, like really consistently all year. And um, once we got to conference, I ran 13.58, and I was like, oh, okay, made it to regionals or the first round of nationals, and was running well. And then in the final, I just didn't run well at all. It was like awful. So I barely missed out making the national meet. So I was like, okay, like career's over, whatever. And then I made the Olympic trials. And I think just being there, I didn't run well at the Olympic trials, but it was a long season. But I think just being there, it was kind of like, oh, like, what's to say? Like I just hit this time. So like I was 20, 24 at the time, probably. I'm like, oh, I might just be starting to hit my peak. Like who's to say I can't run, 13.3, 13.1, and somewhere in that range. So I don't think it was until then that I was like, oh, yeah, it's definitely possible and it's something I should maybe pursue.
Do you ever kind of sit back, because I do, and think how weird it is when at 24, 26 years old, we're thinking like, I'm just now hitting my athletic peak, even though maybe in like high school and even college, you're just like, this is my athletic peak, but there's just like 10 to like 15 more years of potential peaking that could happen.
Yeah. I mean, I grew up, my dad's a longtime track and field coach. And he would always say like, like an Olympic sprinter doesn't hit their peak until, 25, 26, all the way to, in their, early 30s. And I think they're finding that peak given health, if you can stay healthy, that's the big thing. Uh, can even be pushed even longer, and so I think me being who I was always, I wouldn't say I was a late bloomer by any means because I was pretty dominant when I was younger. But in terms of like once I got to high school, I wasn't the best.
Hmm.
And so I think it took more time for me to like actually build my athletic, you know, physically, but also, mentally and those sorts of things that come with age. Uh, so yeah, it is weird to think that like, I'll be 27 and it's like, oh yeah, like this could be like the first year I'm really in the peak, and which is exciting. Yeah. But it is weird because you're like, I don't know, when you're like 21, you're like, I'm in the best shape of my life. It's like,
You're like, joke's on you, 20-year-old, 21-year-old me. Like, that is not the case.
yeah, yeah. I do wish I could, recover like I did when I was 21, but physically it's like, ooh,
Yeah, it takes a little bit more of a toll now.
yeah.
So, what does the Olympic trials and like being a professional like track athlete consist of?
What do you mean?
So, I guess like uh do you have a day job? Like, you know what I
Oh yeah, gotcha, gotcha.
or
Yeah,
like
yeah,
do you
yeah.
just is it just like you like work your day job, you still train? Because I think especially in your case, it's different than like a team sport athlete where
hmm
you have to be like with other people, kind of practicing skills with other people in order to like progress, versus you are in a very individualized sport. So do you like how does that work?
I do have a day job. Um, I work at a brewery. Not full time, but like pretty close. Well, it's pretty close to full time. I worked there when I was in college. So it was kind of like I worked there in the summer. I was like, I got beats doing construction. I'll just serve. And then it worked out where I was like, oh, I can kind of work through the school year and not have to like really penny pinch. I can kind of like just have some extra cash on the side and, like, which was cool. Um, and so I do that, but that allows me to work at night. So I work, anywhere from 5 to, late night. Um, and then it frees me up in the mornings to have a morning, but then also to train early afternoon into the afternoon, then go to work. Uh, yeah, because track is a weird sport on this side of it, on this level of it. Um, even people who are like really elite oftentimes don't have the funding or the sponsorships that you would think they would, um, which is kind of in a way the beauty of the sport. Because if you're doing it, a lot of people, if you're doing it past college, uh, you're either, the best in the world, you're someone who's close to that, uh, and no matter what, you have to love doing it, and I think that's what really shows. But I don't remember the other part of the question.
I think that was kind of it. Just like
Perfect.
and like and also I guess it does lead into so you just had a meet, correct? Like a
Yeah.
race. Are there like how do your races work? Do you already have a schedule for the year, or it's like races are constantly happening, or is it a sets thing? How does that work?
So for me, that's like the hardest part of doing this is finding meets to get into. I'm not represented by an agent or anything at the moment. Um, so basically, I mean, you can run in any meet you want. So in the US, most of the meets you're going to find are NCAA meets, which is fine. I mean, you can run in those. You just run with whoever you're affiliated with or unattached or whatever. Um, but once early May hits, those meets go away because NCAA goes into the postseason. So they're conference, regionals, nationals. Uh, and for me, one, I was hurt this year. So like I didn't open up until last weekend because, I had to get back to it. Um, so that's not till June, like our nationals isn't until the first week of July. So it's kind of like, most people are just opening up in May if they can. So usually you're trying to find meets throughout the states, obviously, because it's cheaper.
Hmm.
But there's going to be a lot of meets in Canada. There's going to be a ton of meets overseas. It's just a matter of getting over there. Uh, and so that's the hardest part for me right now, being like unrepresented. Uh, if you have an agent, usually it's easier to find meets and set a schedule and do those sorts of things. Um, so that's the goal going forward, obviously, but it's very confusing and it is challenging to find meets, but we always find a way. So,
So you can compete against like college athletes?
mhm,
Whoa.
yeah, yeah. So like track, and that's why track's a weird sport like that. And the U.S. is very, it's a weird how we have it set up here, just because the NCAA, I think, um, there's like rankings for different types of meets. If you went on like World Athletics, so like some meets are like, it's almost like a tier list, kind of like Formula One would have in terms of like their divisions of racing.
Gotcha.
But there's meets over at, overseas that are higher tier because there's prize money, where the competition honestly is, it might arguably be less than if you ran at like a really competitive NCAA meet here,
Hmm.
uh, like an invite at Texas, or, something like that, where there's not prize money. So it's technically a lower tier meet. But yeah, you can compete against the NCAA guys.
Very cool. That's wild.
Yeah. Yeah.
So how did your most recent meet go?
It went well. Yeah. It was I mean, you can tell that I was out for 8 weeks with an injury. I just don't have we're getting my stamina back, but it was my fastest opener I've had ever. So I can't be too upset.
What was your
Um,
time?
I ran 1373. So took fourth. So all things considered, it was good. I know that there's a faster time, and I was running, well. I was leading it for a good bit, but just didn't finish super super well. But
Mhm.
all good signs and things to work on really from it. So excited going forward.
Do you have kind of a potential like meet on the horizon so you can like is your goal to try to qualify for nationals this year? Like what's
Yeah,
the plan?
that is the goal. The goal every year is hit the qualifier. So the auto qualifier is 1350, which is definitely doable. I think there's only like 2 more weeks to hit the qualifier, or to like, I don't know, until the window closes, which isn't too big of a deal because I think I'd probably get in with the time I ran. Um, so we'll see. I'm off this weekend, but next weekend I think we're looking maybe Atlanta, maybe somewhere in Florida, uh, and then maybe the week after that, Canada if possible. So it all just comes down to logistics and how much things cost and all that stuff. So
Right.
yeah,
When you go to these meets, is it just you or do you bring like a crew, whether it's friends, family, like a coach?
it's just me.
You just go alone?
Yep.
What is it like being in a sport where you're training for one event that's 13, 14 seconds? Like, what is that like mentally, physically? I want to know because it's completely different to my experience with sports.
Yeah. The traveling aspect is something you have to get used to, because especially being, with the NCAA, you're with the team. Everyone's like, track's an individual sport, but college level, I mean, it's a team sport. There's a score. You're trying to win as a team.
Mhm.
So you're traveling as a team. It's whatever. So that was something I had to get used to. Even when I went to the Olympic, I went to the Olympic trials by myself too, because my coach was gone. Uh, and so that was like, it's kind of funny looking back. That's something that like kickstarted where I'm at now, but trying to get used to uh, being alone, I guess, in that way. Um, but yeah, the training itself is, especially right now, I'm training by myself. In the sense of hurdles, I've always been doing stuff by myself. I've never really had like training partners in terms of hurdlers, uh, which is always, it's worked for me so far. I wouldn't be opposed to having training partners, but it's not something that like some athletes absolutely need other people with them. Otherwise, they will never reach their potential. Some athletes are okay without it. I like a little balance of both, you know. So I'm able to train with some of my buddies at Eastern, being like a coach out here, and that helps for sure, especially in the fall when you're doing like fall camp is like the hardest camp because it's just a grind. Like it's just hard workouts. You're not doing your event, you're just training. Like it's just like conditioning and training really. Uh, but yeah, I mean, especially like right now, I just have a couple coaches with me and it's just me by myself on the track, which you get used to. And there's like kind of once you're comfortable with it, there's like a kind of a beauty in the solitude. But it's easy to get in your head for sure because it's just you. That's why it's good to have coaches, you know, to like pull you back out of wherever you're at, and also make sure that you're doing each rep as hard as you possibly can, you know. So it's yeah, it's a lonely pursuit, but it's not like a bad lonely by any means.
Gotcha. Do you ever get in those kind of headspaces since you're alone all the time? Or and like where you're kind of, I don't know, either not doubting yourself, but just like I'm doing the same thing alone every day. Like, does that get to you? And how do you kind of come out of it?
There's definitely times for sure. I think especially um right now probably less because I'm competing. You know, it's like we're going fast. I'm at this point of the season where I'm really fit. I feel really good, you know, that stuff. But uh, I think a lot of times in the winter, you know, you'll reach a point of that. There's a time in the early season where you reach a point of that, uh, and it's like I don't know. It's a weird feeling. But I think part of it for me is just like reminding myself that it's like it's part of the process, and it's okay to like. I don't have to be like, oh, you shouldn't feel like this. Like, you know, it's like it's okay to feel uh you know how you're feeling. It's just part of the process. So it's like my thing is just feel through the whole thing, um and but not, you know, not let it stop you from showing up and from keep doing it. There's weeks and there's days where it's just like everything's a grind. It's not super fun. You don't always want to do it, and I think that's the case for really everything, you know, like
Hmm.
life related, other sports. I think that's just how it is. I think it's easy to kind of be like, oh well, I don't feel good. Like I don't want to do this. I'm whatever. So this is wrong for me. Like I shouldn't be doing this. And I think if you feel like that all year, you should maybe like assess like, oh, maybe I don't want to do this. But for me, it's not all the time. And it's, you know, it's just there's times where you're like, oh yeah. And I think like now it's hard to even think about what I do in those moments because it's I've been doing it for so long that now it's just like when they do happen, they just like those days kind of just pass by. Like I don't really remember them too much. So
Yeah, it's you make a good point how it ebbs and flows where if you're feeling like that all the time for a whole year, maybe it's time to reevaluate what you're doing. But like if you just push through some of those times, eventually it will get better and like you'll kind of get out of it. And if you don't, that's when you have to kind of reflect and be like, okay, like why am I feeling this way? But like you said, it's okay to like sit with those feelings and like accept that like not every day you're going to want to train and not every day is going to be a great day, but you just got to like keep doing it.
yeah. Yeah. And I think, you know, the older I've gotten, it's still hard, it's still challenging. But it's a little bit easier. I used to get really, really upset, especially at practices when like things weren't going well. And it's like having the expectation that every practice has to be like, you know, 100% perfect like it would be in a meet. And you know, and I used to get like I would really really get mad. Like I mean, I'm knocking hurdles over with my hands. I'm like, you know, and my coach always thought it was kind of funny because he knew that I just cared. I was passionate about it. It wasn't like I had a issue or anything, but uh it wasn't a great thing. And I mean, it's fun. It's like the older you get being like, yeah, you know, like I can, and that's the thing is like, you know, people I remember being like, well, you shouldn't get so mad. You shouldn't get, and it's like, that's fair. Don't let it like come out that much. But also like, if you are upset, it's like, I'm going to be upset. That's fine. But then I'm going to move on and not let it like ruin what I'm doing. I'm not going to let it like, take me down and like take me down this path of like, now I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. I'm not this. I'm not that. And I think, it's like each year it's easier and easier, but it's like last week, like before that week of the meet, like both my hurdle sessions were not great. They didn't feel great. My body didn't feel great. I was watching the videos after each rep and I was just like, I look slow. I look like garbage, and it was like, it's so easy to like, oh man, like now I'm going to run bad at this meet and like, and I was like, okay, I can feel all these things, but the next rep, I got to like flush it and just like move on. And same with like with each day, like each training day, you're going to have the days that are like that. Uh, and it's like my dad used to always say it because he said there was a guy, I don't remember the whole story, but an athlete's like dad came up to one of his athletes who was like supposed to be the state champion, and he lost at this big meet. And came up to him and he said, "Well, you know what, kid? Sometimes you just got to flush." And my dad used to say that all the time because of that. And it's just like sometimes, like yeah, he's like you drop a turd. Like every day is not going to be a great day, and you just have to flush and move on. And so I kind of have a rule with myself too, is like I'll allow myself, especially if I lose a race or if I run bad or if I'm upset or if something happens, I'll give myself 5 minutes to like, if I'm upset, to be upset, to be mad, to not want to talk to people, to be grumpy, pouty, whatever I'm feeling. I give myself 5 minutes. After that 5 minutes, it's back to, a posture of joy. And, doesn't mean that I'm, not going to be look at the video and be frustrated after, but like I have 5 minutes to feel whatever I want to feel. And after that, I'm not going to let it, control my day or the future.
I think that's super important because I have athletes who are very passionate, and when they get upset, they will express it visibly and physically. And
Hmm.
even like mentally, you can like see it in like the things they say to others or themselves. And it's important that like it's okay to feel those feelings, but like you can't loom on them, because that's when it becomes like a negative thing. Because then I find that when you like sit with that too much, everything starts to get like you just see everything as negative. It's like the next rep gets bad, and the next rep is bad, and then you get more upset because all the reps are now getting bad. So I think it's super important.
Yeah, absolutely.
So as we're kind of wrapping up here, what does a typical day of training look like for you?
Um, Today's a decent example. So we go basically 5 days a week. Um, Usually Saturdays are off, especially in the season. Saturday, Sunday off. So Wednesday, the middle day is going to be full recovery day. So like I'll go do some hurdle drills, jog an 800, do some strides. We do a lower leg recovery circuit, that sort of thing. Very easy, quick out, in and out. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday is 2 sessions a day. So one track, one weights. Today is like a perfect example. I'll go track session. It's a heavy hurdle day. So we'll do like our meet warm up. I'll do some excels, and then I'll do all my hurdle drills. So I do like a 3-step drill. We do some standing first over the first hurdle drills. I do some block starts without a hurdle, do some block starts over a hurdle. And then today is out of blocks. I will go over 12 hurdles. So it's two more than the normal race, just to get used to. I got to, build that threshold because I keep getting tired in the race. And then I'll cool down from that, do some jogging, and then um, usually I'll take, it depends on work. Usually I work today. I don't work today, so I'll get to take a little more time in between. But I usually go straight from there, 30 minutes or so after into the weight room, where I'll kind of meander, walk around, I'll roll out a little bit, I'll eat food, uh, or some snacks or something. Uh, and then I'll get into my lift, which usually we try to get the lifts done in 45 minutes or less. That's the goal. Sometimes it takes me about an hour just because I like to take a little more rest between sets, depending on what I'm doing. Uh, but on the track, my coach is like, I want weights to be 45 minutes. Uh, and yeah, so usually like, yeah, I would wake up today. If I didn't have this, I'd wake up, make some coffee, you know, take my vitamins, eat a big breakfast. That's like my big thing is making sure I'm eating breakfast. Uh, I'll usually do some reading, and then if I have any sort of work to do from home, I'll do some work, or I'll just chill, get stuff ready for the day, go to practice, do all that, come home, uh, try to shower before work, uh, and then I'm usually off to work. I work, most of the time it's like 5 to 10. I work like 40 minutes from here, so I don't get home till pretty late. So usually I like to have my meals prepped, things ready. I'll come home. I'll either eat when I get home again, or I'll just have a protein shake, and then I try to stretch, roll out, and then just go to bed, which is usually hard to do because I want to stay up because I'm like, I feel like I didn't have a day today, but uh, try to get to bed. Yeah, so that's a pretty normal day, I think. So like every day.
That's awesome. I like that. Well, Parker, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of my track and field athletes will also appreciate you coming on and just sharing your story and what it's like to continue on in your sport. Because sometimes I feel like people think that either A, they don't have what it takes, or B, they don't really know what's possible after high school and even after college. And so I think you're a great example to show that just because you're done one point of your career doesn't mean that you have to stop. Like there are options post school, which is very cool. I will put all of your socials down or like in the description of the podcast. And everyone, thank you for tuning in. Make sure you follow Parker, you follow Maine Gainz, and you share this with a friend. I will talk to you guys in the next one. Parker, thanks for coming.
Thank you so much. It was awesome.